Welcome everybody. This is conversation in the frame of the Space Renaissance conversation, Space Renaissance Academy conversation that our academy is developing in order to compare different visions of the future of civilization in 200 years from now. I am Adriano Autino, the president of Space Renaissance International, and you are Professor Paul Ziolo. Can you say a few words to introduce yourself and your studies briefly?
Certainly. I'm now retired. I'm a senior research fellow still, though, at University of Liverpool. I lectured in psychology there for about 12 years. Prior to that, I was in other universities in Warsaw, for instance, in Toronto, Glasgow, of course. And I belong to a number of associations like 100YSS, or a friend of me, Jemison and Alison Aliris from 100YSS, and other star-faring ventures like Icarus. I've always been very keen. My actual qualifications are in psychology and in musicology and in math, but I've just been a passionate space nut. But really, until retiring, I didn't have the time to expand. So basically, in a nutshell, that is what I am. I'm a bit of a gypsy academically, but a very keen astronomer, and I follow the space program. My specialty is in psychohistory. This is important because really at all the conferences, I'm a social scientist, and the conferences they tend to be dominated by physical scientists very much. And I think our whole starship or space initiatives all around the world don't take into account what we are as a species and how our civilization grew and what this means for our future. The psychohistory is considered to be a sort of dark art, or black art in the academic world, like I'm some sort of weird cultist. Partly, I think, because we probe human motivation more than anything else, right? So basically, to start off with, that is what I'm interested in. How do we get to space? What are the challenges? And it's not the technological challenges that worry me. We have a mass of technologies. In fact, I always say we have enough technologies to build a starship if we wanted. The issues are not technical, they're political, they're human. You know, what is that quote from the film Conan the Barbarian? What is the strength of steel compared to that of the hand that wields it? It's the hand that wields the steel. That's important, if you follow what I'm saying here. So the psychohistory, therefore, looks at human motivation. The drive for the space program, this movement to the stars, has roots which are very ancient, not simply the Enlightenment, but really in the Middle Ages. The core is there. The first starships, Adriano and everyone who is listening, the first starships were the cathedrals of medieval Europe. Notre Dame, Chartres, Santiago in Spain, Westminster in Liverpool. These were the first starships. And these great buildings were built around memories of our ancient archaic forests once we lived.
Sorry, let me understand. You are saying that the big cathedrals are the first starships because they aim to the stars, they aim to the sky.
They do, yes. And when you go in,
fine concept.
The priest would face the high altar and address the transcendent. And in the same way, on a starship, perhaps, or perhaps on some form of spaceship, the captain is always at the front, looking through the window into beyond, into the transcendent. So this is a very deep thing. Our drive to space is very deep, and it's very old. On the other hand, we do today have a civilization that, paradoxically, is not suited to make this great jump to space. There's a lot of inhibiting factors which worry me.
Yeah.
That is what I work on. I've conversed with you, I've talked to you a little bit about something called the Great Filter, which is an argument dealing basically with the Fermi paradox. Where are those aliens out there? If they're there, why aren't they here? Is there some sort of filter, some sort of block that prevents a young species from making that jump to the stars? How are we hitting it? I'm very optimistic that it's something that can be transcended. And if it is a universal phenomenon and blocks other species too, that simply means that, in fact, we may indeed, with other species, be roughly at the same time of development. But the unfolding of life, the unfolding of intelligence, the unfolding of civilizations happens roughly at the same time, roughly in the universe, because the genesis of life depends upon the state of the parameters, the constants in cosmic evolution. That's very important. I rely a lot on the work of Eric Chesson from Harvard and David Laser, also from Harvard, who in fact, I believe, had a strong influence on Chesson, and the cosmology of the emergence of life, that it is purposeful, in fact, inevitable, although I could not possibly say where we are going. We have to find that out ourselves. So,
okay, you made an introduction, a very, very deep introduction. However, I would like to recall a little bit what is the cue that we are taking for these conversations.
Yes, I followed this, Adriano. I'm sorry for going on.
No, but it was very fine, and it says very much about your development, your philosophical development of this theme that is very, very interesting for us, because I fully agree with you that our main problems now are not technological nor scientific, because we have the technologies to expand into space at least since 40 years. But we have, firstly, philosophical problems, because what I say is that our general philosophy is still pre-Copernican, so it is a closed world philosophy. And just to make an example, look at how we consider Earth orbit like a discharge, like a waste repository, that nobody has to take care about that. So we take care very much of, we take care very much about the Earth environment now, after all the movements, the ecological movements, environmentalists, etc. But just outside our atmosphere, we consider that is not nature. It doesn't belong to us, that we're not responsible for that. This is a very enlightening consideration about how our general philosophy consider our world. It is a closed world, and we don't care about any cosmic ecology. So this is a philosophical problem, it's not a technical problem. And if we want to be now to change our paradigm, passing from the space exploration to space settlement, to space expansion and settlement, I think many key concepts have to change in the general perception. Yes. And this for sure. And I am, from one point of view, I'm pessimistic, because I think that we don't have such a big time before reaching a kind of breakpoint, because in your diagram for stepping to the from monoplanetary to multiplanetary species, there is a break even in the middle. That if we pass this filter, then we make an evolutionary jump. If not, we will fall back probably. You say that there is a third alternative, that is a steady period, but I don't believe that. I think
no, I don't believe that either. I believe there's a sort of steady state, but that steady state is very primitive. And it means falling back to, I mean, I've got a number of quotes that deal with this. I've got, I was going to actually include some just as a matter of the vision of Henry Miller of the future, for instance, which is really very typical of the sort of New Age Earthist view. The kind of thing they want to do is to abandon civilization, return to the Earth, live ecologically in little communities that have no political boundaries. Never mind all the technology. Never mind flying into space. I've always found this very ironic that if you go to, in my youth, going to rock concerts like Rage Against the Machine, here they are raging against the machine in their songs using the latest up-to-date technologies to broadcast it, which is ironic.
Yes,
but,
of course.
The thing is that this ecological paradise, if we just stop sort of thinking about space and live in our paradise, it could never happen. You'll get Mad Max, you'll get warlords rising. It's in our nature. The point is that we've got our blocks I'm just trying to find, why can't we deal with things? We have three main blocks in psychohistory. There are three deep blocks.
Three main blocks, yeah.
Blocks, barriers to getting on with one another, to advancing together, right? And those are, first of all, you have the residue of pre- and perinatal trauma. That means that the trauma that we've experienced in our growth, birth and growth. The residue is very strong in the brain, right? Because this trauma took part in brain formation. It's a hereditary development.
I'm sorry, Paul. While you are entering this, that is the very core of your concepts. Let me ask Ginevra, if you are taking notes, can you do it? Can you do it in the Skype chat? Therefore, I can see it. So if I can get some words, what Paul is saying, I can read it in the Skype chat.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Are you okay there? Are you following what I'm saying here, basically? I wanted to put this across very strongly because this is the root of psychohistory, the approach. The barriers that we do have. And these are ones which I have great difficulty in communicating, all of us who are working in psychohistory. You've got to think, culture. Culture is a means of defending.
But mute your microphone, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the reason why psychohistory is difficult to communicate is that culture is a defense. It's a psychological defense against anxieties. These anxieties have come from, as I say, the residue of our birth trauma, the pre- and perinatal trauma. The second source is that we are a high dependent species. We have a long childhood dependency, which often includes severe physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. And finally, we've got the epigenetic inheritance of being primates. When I teach, when I taught, and when I occasionally still give lectures about the history of science, I sometimes suggest to my students, let's leave the lecture hall, let's go to the zoo in Chester nearby, and watch the monkeys, in particular the baboons. You will learn more from one day observing chimps and baboons. You will learn more about humans than 10 lectures of mine or great analyses of philosophy. We are still psychologically in the Stone Age. We still, especially, I was very struck, Adriano, and particularly by, although I have frequently been in the States, my participation in conferences at a higher level where I got to meet some of the top scientists in the States, space scientists and also physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. I was struck by the very strong ranking that they have and cults of personality and dominance dynamics.
Yeah.
The point is that you know, and we all know, that there are hundreds of space advocacy groups in the world, but no concerted plan. Actually, there is a concerted plan. There is the Integrated Space Plan, which was developed by the Rockwell Corporation in 1989 and is now being reconstituted by Integrated Space Analytics Corporation in the state. But none of us seem to know that we need that central plan. All the space renaissance or space advocacy groups need that central plan. However, it's the ranking, it's the primate dominance dynamics. Who's going to run the thing? Who's going to benefit from it? Where's the money? right? Because there are ancient psychologies at work here. That, Adriano, and I'm finishing my statement for now, I'll pass it to you. That is the structure of our filter at the moment. That's the structure of our filter.
Yeah.
There are ways around it, but we can come to that later if you like. There is a way around this.
So, no, I was saying that from one point of view, I am pessimistic because I see that we don't have very much time because we are already almost 8 billion people. That is near maybe the critical number of humans in a closed system before civilization will implode. And we don't know how much we can keep on growing in a closed system before having a very, very bad event that we will fall back in history, in the evolution scale. And this is what makes me pessimistic. But on the other hand, I am also optimistic because what I feel is that our species has a kind of persistence on this planet and in this solar system. And we have now many 100,000 years of history as a Homo sapiens, and we made a quick acceleration of our progress in the last two centuries. If you look at the history, you see that from one point of view we are alive for a miracle, because several miracles, or miracles under brackets, occurred during our history. Because we could already have destroyed ourselves several times. Just think about the 50s and the 60s and the nuclear experiments and the possibility of a nuclear war that was in that time, and think about a lot of other things that always we are running on a blade. We are blade runners in our history.
Blade runners, yes, indeed.
So I am from the religious point of view, I am agnostic. So I don't believe that someone will save us if not ourselves. We are the only responsible for saving ourselves. So I don't know. I'm agnostic and not atheist. So I am even open to.
You know that the most powerful vehicle for social change and the most powerful vehicle for getting us to the stars is religion.
Yes. Well,
religion, not that.
No. Religion. The very, very old meaning of the word religion is unify.
Yes.
Therefore, religion is a unified efforts of the people is the very basic need for any project. Therefore,
it is.
Yes, okay. However, so what I see is that how can I say our species is hard to be killed. So in some way, the more we exist, the more it's like if we gain more right to exist. So I do hope that in some way the positive vectors will come up, as we see in these last 2 years, Elon Musk with his reusable rockets.
Yes.
This is a K event, a positive event, because he broke the monopoly. He broke the monopoly of the ULA and of the traditional aerospace big industry that kept the price to orbit high because they were a cartel. So
yes,
Elon Musk decided that he wanted to break this monopoly and did it. And he did it in a very smart way because he accepted to work for NASA. So he wasn't, how can I say, extremist libertarian that says, no, I don't want to work for agencies because agencies are socialist, agencies are bureaucracy, I want to be free, the free market, etc. No, he said, okay, what is the quickest way to break the monopoly? Working for NASA. He got contracts, and by means of this money, he can recover after failures. So in 3 months, he recovered. Richard Branson it took already 3 years after the disaster of Spaceship 2, and still fighting to have the needed certification by the authorities, etc. So these are two examples. No, Elon Musk working for the public, working for the government, has the money to break the monopoly. Virgin Galactic trying to work for developing space tourism on itself, on its capital, growing on its capital only, didn't succeed so far. So there are many political and economical reasons for all of that. That I don't want to touch it now because the discourse will be too much wide. However, what I see is that positive vectors emerge. However, they come up. Additive manufacturing is another. Additive manufacturing is revolutioning the mechanical production completely.
So, the blacksmith's shop in the Starship, I always call it. It's like a blacksmith, someone working in the old days of metal. Anyway, the point is
coming to the questions. Okay, let's try to come to the questions. I was excited by the expanse, especially by the books, because the movies, as you say, are a little bit more space western, and so
those are what I didn't like. I haven't read the books. But,
it's funny for me. They are funny, however, because I think are good science fiction. They are very much better than the science fiction science fiction movie we saw for last 40 years that were all dystopian. That were science and technology were the enemies, were the evil that destroyed the world or ruined the nature of the planet, etc. So this is again a better science fiction, I say, because it proposes, however, a civilization that is moving with all of its failures and defects and faults, etc. Because basically the author says that in 200 years we are the same from philosophical point of view. We didn't evolve because we still have murders and violence and so this is my first question is, I always thought and I maintain that expanding civilization into space will create a platform of abundant resources and many of our problems, underdevelopment, starvation, unemployment, etc., will probably fade out because we will have the possibility to build a fully inclusive society, and nobody will be jobless, nobody will be starving, etc., or nobody. However, okay, these problems will be progressively reduced. But we see that in this 200 years future, we have 30 billion people on Earth, and the majority are unemployed, living with a salary of subsistence. So this is a little bit contradictory because the frontier was opened. So my first question is, do you think that in 200 years, will it be possible to see some positive sides of the evolution due to the opening of the frontier and to the beginning of a multiplanetary society? Should we see some signs of that? And the last question, should we suggest to the writer, to the science fiction writer, to take care of anthropological analysis and sociological analysis, and not only of how good are the starships that go quickly to Jupiter? So,
yes, indeed. I mean, my favorite science fiction books, the most influential, are probably the Foundation trilogy, Asimov's Foundation trilogy. That is super, and Dune, right? So the Foundation trilogy shows a mechanism by which major transformations can happen. That is why it is still so popular. Dune by Frank Herbert shows that if we move 12,000 years into the future, we will change. But the point I want to make here, first of all, I am optimistic because the governing function for human development, starting, say, 12,000 BC, and graphing out the complexity of civilizational levels of civilization, it's a hyper-exponential function, beginning slowly, gradually steepening and moving to actually vertical at the present time. That's hyper-exponential. It's consistent. And the details of that function are a series of alternating phase transitions where you get great transformations, like at the end of the Roman Empire, the collapse and masses of movement of peoples, and quasi-stable periods. It means that what we think of sometimes as falls of empires are really quite minor if you look at a distance. The governing function points to a major change now, and it's an evolutionary change. And the point about what I'm answering your question here, because you're asking 200 years' time, is the other side of that finite time singularity, that vertical point in the function.
Yeah.
How do we transcend that? Well, the jump to space is going to be a major evolutionary jump. We're still here on Earth. We've had 6 visits to the moon, which is like swimming to a little rock just outside where you're lying on the beach and back. No one's been out. We've got people in space, yes, but it's not really space, Adriano, in my opinion. The ISS, just suborbital. It's not really. They call themselves astronauts, but astronaut means star sailor. Cosmonaut means sailor through the cosmos. What? We're not doing that. The point is that, and here is a statement I want to make on this particular talk, is that I don't believe that normal, natural humans can survive in space. Our successors, modified humans, can survive in space. That modification will be physical. It'll be partly genetic, partly cyborganic. In other words, cyborg and biological. Above all, also, it will be mental. So much so, I found science fiction difficult to write because I come up to the point of that finite time singularity and I say, who are the pioneers that lie beyond? They are very different to us. They're very, very different. I've got a number of quotes here, but I could sort of read some of these out. They're just they basically all state the same thing. That one I rather like, and I may have probably sent it to you by email, is the fact that the kind of put it this way, social transformations are achieved by specific kinds of groups that work together, that usually form some sort of close association, that practice strong mental disciplines and make the transformation. 2 examples in history are the Benedictine order, that basically saved much of what was classical civilization at the fall of the Roman Empire. The second, which is very important for studying closely, are the Cistercians. Both from England here, from Britain, down through France to Italy, we've got an axis of Cistercian monasteries. They were major innovators in engineering, civil engineering, in animal biology, in metallurgy, and in architecture. Within 50 years of the foundation of the order, they were dominating the universities. My feeling is, historically, they are really one of the major catalysts that led to the creation of a scientific, technological culture, a recursively self-enhancing, growing one. And that this transition we face now, beyond that hyper-exponential wall, beyond that filter, we need a similar kind of organization. But there is no evidence when I talk to audiences in the States and that they understand that the mental disciplines and training to move beyond are essential. The Cistercians moved, not everyone, the monastics were still a minority, but their efforts created a world that benefited everyone. This is the point. The bulk of humanity follows where good leaders lead. And sometimes who leads and who is the catalyst is not visible. It's not the visible powers, but those working underneath, those working in the background. This is the story of Asimov's foundation, if you know it. You've got the physical scientists, you've got the empire, you've got Terminus and its great politics and mayors and that. And you've got the secret hidden second foundation, whose mental disciplines are controlling the plan. I'm not talking about a secret cabal here. No, nothing at all. The example is the Cistercian order. It's one of the best examples I can have. Later, perhaps, we can also talk about the Jesuit. Because these organizations had a transcendent vision. Never mind its content. Never mind whether it is God or whatever. It's a transcendent vision. Very often, I mean, I have a number of Italian heroes too in my histories. One is Joachim Fiore, right? The Calabrian abbot from Calabria.
Gioacchino Fiore?
Yes, Gioacchino di Fiore, right? We have a collection of his manuscripts are in the Corpus Christi College at Oxford, and I've really looked at them very closely. They are so cosmic, so directed historically. And they also have this concept of the active foundation and the sort of hidden mental foundation. Same thing. Another of your Italian philosophers that I really love is Giambattista Vico, who's I teach his work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I taught his work a lot. As a psychohistorian, he is a psychohistorian. He's someone who sees the deep structure of human evolution and life and points to it. So the point is now that we need this major step from where we are now, beyond into that 200 years gap. We have to have a catalyst for it that understands what is happening and is able to work together to achieve it. Like, I believe that's possible. Of course I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you. If I wouldn't be engaged in this. I wouldn't be writing papers if I didn't know that there are tools, there are instruments for getting to the stars, but they are also as much social tools as technological ones. So we have
to work together to build a catalyst.
Yes.
Yes.
I call it a chrysalis.
I am also concerned about what you say that the terrestrial humans will not be able to live in space. And yes, I think this is a scientific problem.
Yes,
we have to face, and so what we are trying to do with Space Renaissance is to make a campaign to stimulate a better coordination and collaboration between private industry and space agencies, because
yes.
This private industry can develop new technologies, new propulsion systems, new technical tools, and all these kind of things, and methodological tools too. But however, there are 2 points at least, maybe 3, that are scientific challenges. And the first one is protection against cosmic radiation. That is a scientific problem to be approached very much more seriously than what we did so far, because there are thousands of papers on that, but nothing real. Because okay, we live in the space station that is inside the Van Allen belt, therefore it is not such a high risk. But if we go outside, if we go to the moon and in the cislunar space, then it is different, already different, very higher cosmic radiations. So this is one thing. And the second thing is the artificial gravity. We need at least the first generation, let me say the first centuries, that the migrants, in the space migrants, need to have an environment similar, very much similar to the Earth environment. So the 1G is fundamental in order not to change too much our shape, our physiology, our everything, our biology. And the third point, that to be honest on this point, it was Howard Bloom that made me reflect on this, because it is one conversation that we made 1 week ago. Did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very interesting too.
I've been catching up on these talks.
Yeah, however, he attracted my attention on the point of the vegetal life, of the that if we make an infrastructure in space, maybe on the O'Neill model. The first thing we have to do is to reproduce an ecosystem over there with plants, because he said, yeah, he made another criticism to the expanse. He said, I cannot stand science fiction where people live in small metal cans without even a single plant. We cannot live without plants.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
That is true. That is true. So we have three scientific points: the protection against radiation, the artificial gravity, and the green. Let me say
what I wanted to say here is that we must create that habitat as soon as we can. We must make that foothold in deep space, not a habitat around the Earth, like Gaia says, but somewhere like L5 at least, or elsewhere. And it should be a space habitat, not a moon base, not a Mars base. It should be.
Yes, I agree.
The evolutionary advances will occur. And we need to do this before, and this is very important, before the conflicts and crises of today precipitate a system's collapse.
Yes.
To a point where we can't recover. We can't recover because of key resource depletion. If we fall, building another space culture is going to be extremely difficult because we have used up the key resources that we needed. We have that feast of oil. We could have used that great feast of oil to have gone to space, but we haven't. We've wasted it on wars, on politics, on various things, on destruction, right? So I was interested very much. I have just read the deep history of Biosphere 2. Do you know about Biosphere 2?
Yes, I know. I follow it for a time, some time.
It's disturbing because that is one of the great experiments in constructing a space habitat, but you'll see that the establishment, the scientific establishment, basically destroyed it. They basically didn't want it, right? I don't believe necessarily that the government is going to be very cooperative about the space venture, unless it means power dominance, unless it means a world not unlike John Corey's Expanse world. But that world is impossible, Adriana. You can't have 30 billion people on Earth.
Yeah.
How are you going to? You need about 7 Earths to support that number.
Yes, yes.
Really, no one is reading Malthus these days. Don't we ever look at their Malthusian equations? Don't we ever think about thermodynamics of human life? I mean, psychohistory is based on very much on the thermodynamics of human life and what causes fluctuations, rises, falls, chaos, and this kind of thing. A lot of it is bound basically to our relationship as a mass, as an entity, to the environment. Now, one of the big things, I think, I'm really fascinated by how the psychology of the future of the pioneers might look and what we need. I think really that among all the spiritual visions or philosophical visions of the world, Buddhism offers a clue. Certain kinds of approaches in Buddhism about living beings. We've got to understand right deep in our hearts that we as individuals don't count. It's the species that counts. It's the evolution of the species. That's the unit of survival, not the individual. And this goes against American capitalism. I'm sorry, but that's how we do it. That's how we participate now in our short lives. But belonging to this great organic power, like a crayon, we actually participate in this distant future creation. We are part of it. So this understanding of, it's called something called a crayon, a dynamic biological entity, a superorganism, if you will, if there's no other word. That is the way to think. And we need the mental disciplines not only to transcend the individual passions that generate strife and conflict, we need also the training to enable us to grasp space, time, matter, and our place in it. We are part of this vector domain of emergent process, and we've got to embrace that fully. But this is a difficult thing to do. I mean, we're not trained to do that. And our culture actually forbids us from doing that. One aspect of research I'm doing at the moment now with a group in Oxford is on teaching very young children, preschool children, the basic disciplines behind quantum theory and thermodynamics and complex sciences. And we do this by means of graphics that use the child's mind, which is highly inventive and highly topological. And focusing on this for me is we are building children that are future-oriented and have the capacity to grasp on a much wider scale their own meaning in the universe. Very young children can do this much easier than adults can. And they also have a different relationship to AI and computers. And this is extremely valuable because we don't have this relationship to AIs and computers. They do. And the future is cyber-organic. So really, from a psychohistorical point of view, part of the work of this chrysalis, this catalytic organization, focuses on early childhood education. That's the way to go. We need to make sure they are not killed off by our educational system. That's teaching science in primary school as it's done. You know, oh, you have to have a hypothesis and you have to have materials and then the experiment, analysis of the data computed. Come on, right? And you know, the reductionism. Science, modern science teaches reductionism. This is what happened with Biosphere 2. It's a new kind of grasping of complexity. So these things, I'm not going to talk any more about this, but say that these are some of the conditions that we need to successfully teach culture.
This is somehow in tune with another thing that our Bloom told me 1 week ago, that in the last 50 years or so, there was a growth of the average intelligence quotient of 35 points.
Yeah.
This is thanks to the electronic revolution, of course, thanks to the computer science and all of this.
Adriano, this is called the Flynn effect. We have to distinguish between a real growth of intelligence and an increased adaptation to the conditions of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think they're measuring. They're not measuring intelligence. That's something else. We have always.
So you are suggesting that the intelligence quotient tests are questionable?
Yes, I am.
We should have better tests.
Yes, better evaluations.
Yeah,
and,
maybe.
Gardner, the scientist who developed the classifications of intelligence, developed 8 different kinds of intelligence. But we still focus on only a couple of those: the logical, mathematical, and the verbal. We don't consider kinesthetic intelligence, musical intelligence, the other kinds of intelligence. And there are 2 other intelligences that are critical that Gardner proposed but were rejected. And that is, first, a moral intelligence and an existential intelligence. Well, that's a big one, right?
Social intelligence too.
Yeah,
social intelligence.
That actually is part of the 8. That's called emotional intelligence. And
emotional, yeah.
But I mean, how
and this drive me to consider another friend that I had a conversation in this cycle. It is Stephen Wolfe. Do you know him? He wrote a book called The Obligation.
Yes, I haven't got to him yet, but I'm getting there. Okay.
So in this book, The Obligation, it talks about 6 endowments that humans are endowed with, different types of humans. There is the explorer, the wanderer, he call him the wanderer, explorer, the settler, the builder, the inventor, and the visionary, and the protector.
Yes.
So this is a little bit similar to the types of intelligence that you were mentioning before. Mm-hmm. Because there is people that cannot stay sitting in the same place for more than 2 days. Then they have to go. These are the explorers, and
yes,
this is very, very fine, very interesting, because also explain why I am discussing with a friend here in Italy that's a very good activist and that is working for Space Renaissance Italia and very active, and he is very much passionate with artificial intelligence and robotics and all these kind of things, and we discuss about that, because I maintain that I am very happy to use artificial intelligence even now, because Google is something like that and Facebook too.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is to keep my own individual possibility to decide how much to use it, how to use it, when to use it, and what this intelligence should do for me. So to be short, I don't think I will never like to have an artificial intelligence over my head that is something like an artificial God.
No.
Even if I understand that many people would like it, because there are religious people, if they don't have God, they will try to make it for sure.
That is what AI often is. It's a quest to make God.
Yeah, and also the old communist people, they want a central committee.
Yes, they do. Yes, but
Yes,
you've noticed that the most gifted AI creators in the history of AI are all passionately religious. Passionately religious.
Yeah.
There are no atheists in the AI community because they want to make God, right?
Yes. And maybe then making some fantastication, some fantasy, we could also think that maybe the idea of God that we have now come from an ancient civilization that already built it. They had it.
Yes, I know.
However, okay, these are just kidding. Okay, but however, what I discuss with my friend Daniele is that I would like very much to have better artificial intelligence, but it must be a tool in my availability. I mean, I want to buy it. It has to be my tool, my computer. No, I decide when to switch it on, when to switch it off, and I have to decide. It must be completely parametric. Something that now our telephone are not so, because our telephone makes things that we don't know and we don't like, and we wouldn't like to. They do.
Yeah.
So our computers do, because Microsoft is this kind of central committee. No, because they make on our machines what they want.
Yeah,
so,
and you know, Adriano, this in 25 years will be microchipped and buried in the cerebellum.
Yes.
That's going to happen. What better way?
But, however, I think we have to write some ethics for the artificial intelligence to take the Isaac Asimov work on the three laws, okay, to extend these three laws and say that our artificial intelligences must be fully parametric. We have to control them from scratch and say, okay, now you are only an inference engine, your artificial intelligence, you are only an inference engine without rules. So you can do nothing. Now I give you the rules. I buy the databases with specialistic rules. So I decide which rules you should have, and I decide your degree of autonomy. If I can decide zero autonomy, then you only do what I do. You only do what I decide.
I agree.
I give you 10%. I give you 10% autonomy. So you are allowed to go around in the network and to look for something and propose to me. And always I have to decide if I want to accept or not. But
there are certain dangers here as well. I mean, the point is that I've always said the machine won't dominate the human. Human and machine will become one. And it'll be a symbiosis whereby the machine
I think the same.
Enhances human cognition, but motivation remains the human unique property, because the machine does not have motivation.
And creativity. Creativity.
Yes, there are two aspects of computation that concern me. First of all, I believe the singularity that's often talked about will come about, but not in the way people think. Basically, the singularity will take off once a machine starts to create another machine by itself, based on its own search or quest for cyborganic perfection. I've always said that when it comes to religion, biological beings, those of all of us born from mothers and fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers and mothers, We reverence the past because we are descended from mighty ancestors. So we reverence the past, but not in the new world, not of the cyborg. The cyborg seeks perfection in the future because that's the direction of technological perfection, right? That's the way it goes. Now, there are, for instance, genetic and metagenetic programming, like in Koza's work.
Yeah.
There are programs or self-enhancing programs that can arrive at solutions far more powerfully than those of any human, and by means of which human programmers don't understand. That's the scary thing, right? It's not that the machine is taking power. It's not. It's the power of the system of metagenetic computing in itself.
Yeah, so you mean the machine will make algorithms that we don't understand?
Yes.
The machine will design algorithms.
Yeah, there are specific cases of this, and this is Koza. Was saying this is in his work.
I would like to try to, well, to summarize few points, because I think they are very interesting, and also for our academic program, and not only for that. So I think that the project you mentioned the project. You say the most important thing to do is an infrastructure in L5.
Yes.
On nail style, something like that.
Yes, let's call it a chrysalis. Something that is social structure.
So I think maybe we should do our best to try calling to work together the groups that in the world are working on this topic. And I know that the British Interplanetary Society is working on that. My friend Jerry Stone, that maybe you know.
Yes.
Jerry Stone told me they are working on a project called Island Zero or something like that. Island Zero on the nail style, however. There is a group in Italy that is working on this, and then they presented their project just 2 days ago. It is called Orbitectur. And the coordinator is Rino Russo, that was the first president of Space Renaissance Italia in 2014. Then in 2015, he decided to make his own group because he wanted to be more technological and less philosophical. So he decided to spin off and make his own group.
You see what's happening here, don't you? I think we're getting formations on the surface. None of these are going deep down to look at the remaking, the reconstruction of the human spirit itself, which is what characterizes the shift from the Roman Empire, antiquity, to the Middle Ages, through the Benedictines, and from the Middle Ages to modernity via the Cistercians. Not the Enlightenment, but the Cistercians. These involve transformations of the human spirit on a deep level, the very things that your physical scientist today is not going to relate to very well, not even on a social science level. But that's what's necessary. That the psychohistorical equations, such as they are, show the necessity for the catalyst, the deep acting catalyst for any major transformation. And that's what we need.
Well, I think
enterprises are wonderful, but they're not going to succeed, Adriano. Without this renewal, we won't succeed.
No, okay. Well, I think that such an infrastructure in L5 would be very useful for the asteroid miners, for instance.
Who's going to build that? To build that at L5, you're going to need pioneers who will live out there.
Yes,
who's going to do it?
Sure. I think very much better to make that than to go to Mars and never come back.
Yes.
Because this is the reality.
I love Elon Musk. I love his enterprise, but I believe that the Martian expedition will be a catastrophe.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
They don't think about gravity. Do they know? Here's another thing, Adriano, is we can't reproduce in space. Humans can't reproduce. No higher vertebrate can reproduce in space. Weightlessness attacks everything, and radiation. A combination of that, the whole body fluid system is in imbalance. people can't mate in space. You can't have sex or anything like that. You can't. I mean, there are papers on this. The Russians done a lot of work on this. We know this. But this is going to be a big barrier. You can't just select, say, 30 couples, send them to Mars, and expect they're going to. They're not. The fetus, the human fetus, you've got to return to this origins, this beginning. To grow properly, it's got to have the right combination of gravity, of atmospheric conditions, pressure, and everything. Or most of the disasters that happen in space and through experiments, not on humans yet, of course, but on animals, like involves the neural tube, the most delicate process at the beginning, never closes because of microgravity, radiation, a number of factors. There's a very complex mathematics of unfolding at the beginning when the zygote forms. It can form, but then the complex mathematics of unfolding, that's what is so dangerous. Basically, space threatens higher organized structures. What I've learned so far from our conferences in Houston at 100 YSS, very good conferences because you get to listen to biologists and everybody probably, is that space attacks the immune system. In other words, under great stress, complex organisms break down. The ones that survive and proliferate are bacteria. They have the power.
Oh, yes, bacteria.
Microbes.
Yes.
Now, this teaches us, it's got to teach us something about management, ecological management in space. I believe you can build a habitat, but do they know what they're doing? Another thing is that there's a very important book that came out recently, I think, and that's Kim Stanley Robinson's Aurora. The book is not well written, but it's still, what's good is it, Anderson has gone again, he's Kim Stanley, he doesn't like space travel. He decided after writing all these great, Mars, Green Mars and this kind of thing, he decided that people have no home in space, that we should stay on Earth. And his challenges to building starships are very good because these things are not brought up in conferences. I've asked questions like this. What happens if you have a starship traveling at an appreciable fraction of the speed of light? It becomes a closed ecological system, more than the ISS is not a closed system. The ISS, you want to take a holiday, you can just pop down to Earth. You want to get fish and chips or a hamburger, it can be sent up. Come on, that's not space. That's not a closed system. And also, what troubles me and what emerges in Robinson's novel is the ecology, the long-term thermodynamic degradation in a closed ecological system. This can often be seen on Earth sometimes in island ecologies. No one has any control over these ecologies, over what happens to the human. Funnily enough, again, you see, as a species, things have turned up in the past that are strongly powerful and suggested this. Brian Aldiss wrote a novel called Non-Stop in 1956, I think it was, about a long-term starship, a world ship. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. You know, you don't learn until about 3/4 of the way through that you are in a starship. You're in a bizarre jungle world, right? And it turns out that your hero and heroine are only about, about a foot or 2 feet high. They're tiny. And the great jungle is the hydroponics of the starship that's going out of control because everyone's lost the plot. They have not maintained the culture, right? And yet I will go to Houston and I'll say, how do you maintain the integrity of your culture? And they will say Wikipedia, updates.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say Wikipedia updates at 1,200 light years away. Are you kidding, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Paul,
it was wonderful. I would like to talk for hours and days, and I think we should do it again and continue this.
I appreciate it. So I appreciate the ability to communicate and express these things.
So,
right?
So far, let's close here. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you, and all our listeners. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful Sunday for what it remains. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Geneva.
Bye. It was a pleasure.